Sure.
Great. First of all, hello everybody, and welcome to Sitlov webinar on insurance for language service providers and language professionals. My name is Sudhir. I'm Vice President of Sitlov for the North region. I'm also President of Crystal Hughes, a complete communication lifecycle company that creates and localizes content in any language and delivers it in any technology. Well, in today's context, insurance has become a very important tool to protect yourself against the unpredictable business environment. Hence, we have this session, very important session for today, and I think this is going to be a very thought-provoking session for all of us in language industry. The session will be moderated by Ms. Devki Kunte. She's head of Language Services Bureau and also a member of Sitlov. Over to you, Devki. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudhinji. Hi, everyone, and a very good evening to all of you. And for those joining in from other parts of the world, greetings. On behalf of Team Sitlov, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you to this July webinar of Sitlov about insurance for language service providers and language professionals. I'm Devki Kunte, heading Language Services Bureau. We have been in the language industry for more than 4 decades. And apart from other language services, we also provide translation training. So I would now quickly give a brief introduction of our guest speaker, Mr. Vibhav Kumar, who is the CEO of Burns Brett India. He has an extensive experience of over 23 years in the insurance industry as consultant, insurance advisor, reinsurance advisor, as well as an underwriter, handling large liability insurance programs, settling of large insurance claims, and drafting some bespoke liability insurance wordings. Mr. Kumar has a long experience in training in South Asia with Tata AIG, HDFC, Ergo, Bajaj Allianz, and the list is long. So he's a visiting faculty member for National Insurance Academy and Insurance Institute of India too. I would now pass on the dais to Mr. Kumar, who will brief us about the scope of insurance in the language industry. Thank you.
Thanks, Devki. Thanks, Sudhin. Thanks, first of all, a big thank you to Sitlov for inviting me to share my views on insurance and something that when I look into translation industry, this definitely like insurance is something which is applicable to all professional and translation being industry being one specific one. So yes, today my discussion will be more based upon a focus upon translation industry. And to be honest with all of you, like as of now, I have not done a single policy for any of our translators. But yes, based upon my experience, I would want to share my views, and whatever clarifications you would want, please feel free to ask me. I'll start with my presentation. Is it visible? Thanks.
Yes, it is.
So I'll be taking few topics about it. One of the main one is on a professional indemnity exposure. Something about my company, which I'll just skip it. I'm not here to promote my company, but more to talk about what I would say like insurance is, I feel is required for any translation industry. But before I start with professional indemnity insurance, which as I mentioned to you, is a basic thing for translation industry, my question to you is like, why do you buy insurance? What is the need of insurance? And generally, when I look in India, we buy insurance for few reasons. One, if we are mandated by law to have an insurance, for instance, motor car insurance or motorcycle insurance. Why? Because the Motor Vehicle Acts mandates that if you're applying your vehicle on a public road, then you need to have a third party liability insurance. So it is mandatory. Second is, most of us would want to buy insurance from the period of January to March for tax, right? So for tax saving purposes, and historically it has been going on, it's not new, historically it has been going on. The third is, typically when I look into it, when I take a finance from a financial institution, the financial institution mandates that you need to take an insurance for that asset that you're purchasing. Suppose you have purchased an office, suppose you purchased office equipment, maybe servers, maybe computer systems on a bank finance, the bank will insist upon you buying insurance for those assets. So again, we are being forced to buy it. Do we buy insurance voluntarily? Is a big question. Do we feel the need of insurance? Good. Do we need to feel? Do we feel the need of taking insurance, and why? See, when I talk about tax, tax can be managed by various ways. Is insurance the only way? No. Typically, when we go to insurance, also we do investments, not a risk coverage. Is it the right way of doing it? Big question. I am from the insurance industry and I'm raising this question, okay? Why should you buy? Do you perceive that there is some risk? Or do we think about insurance after we have suffered a loss? Like in Mumbai, where I'm currently in, if you remember 2005, there was a lot of damage because of flooding in Mumbai. And then people thought about buying insurance. People purchased for 3-4 years and they slowly started forgetting about insurance. And then they did away with it. Now, when you look into it, yes, insurance is also to be propagated. Today, most of us, when we buy a new vehicle, we would want to buy a wide policy. The bumper of the plastic is covered over there. 100% no zero depreciation. We look into it. High-end cars would people would want to have a key cover, various covers. Okay, but it is being told to us. Have we researched before buying insurance? No, I don't think so. Most of us do it. It's said like, okay, these are the cover, these are the features. At that particular point of time, we feel that it's important. We purchase it. But just like any other product that you buy, have you analyzed this product? If you have not analyzed it, and you have not seen as to like what are the benefits or what are the conditions, so in the event of a claim, you may get stuck up for getting a claim settlement. And the basic reason why you buy insurance is like tomorrow, God forbid, if there's a loss, the policy should respond to a claim, should respond to a loss. And the question of indemnity over here arises, whether would you get indemnified because of that insurance policy for the loss that you have suffered. That's the basic crux of it, nothing more than that. Okay, so today I'm going to speak about professional indemnity insurance. Is it important for you? What you should look into it is something that you have to take care of yourself. Yes, for the first time when you read the insurance policy, it's boring because it's not like a novel written down. It's like a legal document. Any insurance policy is a contract. So reading a contract, and I would say like most of you, since you are in a business of professional services, you would be entering into a contract with various customers, especially the corporate ones. And sometimes you may need to take help of legal counsels also. One, because sometimes the legal language is little difficult to understand or correlate to the various clauses in the contract. professional indemnity policy is something similar to it, or maybe all insurance policy is a contract, so they have clauses. Now let's look into what professional indemnity insurance is all about. What is the risk, if I may ask? A third-party liability exposure arising out of a professional negligence, or in other words, associated with the provision of a service. As a translator, you are providing a service to a client. Okay. Now, the service, for that service, you are charging a fee. Now, the client expects that whatever services that you're providing in terms of translation has to be good, has to be excellent. Therefore, they are paying you that amount of money. Otherwise, they may not have contracted you, they would have contracted someone else. Now, at the time of translation, if you have given and if there was a negligence over there and you have given a wrong impression, because it's not only the sentences, is not only words, it's also what meaning it is communicating to the other party. If the communication is wrong, and I, who have taken the help of a translation services, I interpreted wrongly, and the execution of my work has been incorrect, the other party suffers a loss, may file a case against me, and I feel lost out. Why should I be bearing this loss? Because this translation service was provided by a firm to whom I have paid a fee, and I would want this particular loss to be borne by the translation services company. Now, this is a liability, which means someone else is suffering a loss. It's not, as a translation services company, it is not my loss. Someone else, a third party, has suffered a loss. They have made a demand of recovery of the loss amount. And that is something which is also arising from the professional negligence. So this particular policy responds to that particular exposure. These liabilities may arise because of allegations of negligence in terms of providing service, right? Now, it could be various ways. Suppose I would say, like, negligence may not only be the incorrect interpretation of the words or the clause or the setup or the sentence. Negligence could also be, I would say, in terms of there is a delay in service, right? Now, I have provided a wrong thing based upon which the client actually has questioned me, and I actually took an extra time in terms of reverting back. Now, there's a delay on the part of the client, and the client has lost a project just because of my negligence. They can even make a demand for that, a demand for compensation. Okay. A wrongful act is defined in a policy, and this is something that between different insurance companies, the policy wording differs. So you would need to refer to a definition of a wrongful act. But to a large extent, if you ask me, 80% of it would be in terms of providing a negligent service. It could also be, for instance, like a document has been provided to you, and you have lost a document, which was an important document. To recreate a document, there is an extra cost required. Why will your customer provide or pay for that cost? That cost comes to you. So that's a wrongful act. It could also be, suppose you're doing a translation services for maybe a German pharma company, which is providing a technology to an Indian company. You have lost this information or this document, intellectual property, to a third party by mistake. Again, that's a loss to both the companies. Both the companies may file a suit. If that being the case, definitely here, this is a wrongful act which can be looked into it. Any errors or omission arising from the conduct of business. Can you think of any errors or omission arising from the conduct of business? So you can ask questions now also. I would want us the particular session to be interactive so that we all can take the benefit of it. And it also helps me in answering any questions. So any errors or omission arising from the conduct of your business, do you think any such things could arise? Okay. Suppose when you're delivering this service or when you're trying to market yourself, you have put a disparaging remark to one of your competitor or to one of the customer's competitor. This information or this disparaging remark actually goes on to the other party. The other party can also file a claim against you that you have made a disparaging remark. That exposure can also get covered over here. For instance, you are helping in terms of designing a website. Designing in a sense, the content part of it. I'm not talking about the graphics part of it, the content part of it. Because you are translating, you have maybe a French company whose French website is there, you would want to convert into an English. Or maybe an Indian language, it could be Hindi, it could be Bengali, it could be Tamil, whatever. When you're actually copying it and when you are translating it and putting it over there, is it going to disparage any of it? Have you looked into it properly, the content of it? If this content is going to disparage someone, or I would say infringing upon intellectual property right of someone, for instance, a trademark, while changing it, you actually coined a slogan, which you have not coined, but you have picked up a slogan of someone else's because it is, the jingle is something that people may like it. Without taking a prior consent, you did that. And that is something that can actually lead to a future claim. Now, the risk is there, but we need to look into the solution. The solution is like the professional indemnity policy. It's also known in the, I would say, like American world as errors and omission liability insurance policy, or commonly they call it either PI policy or a ENO policy. Provides cover for legal liability claims arising out of error or omission in the performance of professional services for others. So you're not doing it this for yourself. The professional services you're providing to a third party, the third party suffers a loss. Either the party whom you're providing service or their client has suffered a loss. The loss gets translated or pushed to your client, and your client pushes it to you. That exposure is covered over here. Professional services are normally defined as the activities of the insured as declared to and accepted by the insurance company. So any professional indemnity policy, when you're wanting to take it from an insurance company would want to have a proposal form filled in, wherein you'll be describing the activities that you're providing. This has to be as exhaustive as possible. Even if you have done it once, or maybe from the date you're taking the policy, you are anticipating to do a particular line of business service or particular service that you're going to provide to your customer, please mention that as well. Because the policy that you're taking is for future 1 year. During the currency of the policy, that services, if you're rendering, it should get covered in the policy. Also, it's not only when you're providing in the proposal form, when your terms, whosoever, either you go to an insurance company or you go to an agent or go to a broker, or maybe through Citlop, you're trying to take the help of Citlop in terms of accessing someone to get a professional indemnity policy. When the terms comes in, before you pay the premium, please look into the terms and conditions. It's very, very important that whether the exposure which had been declared in the proposal form has been properly covered in the terms and conditions. Once you are satisfied, then you can go in terms of proceed in terms of paying the premium to get a policy incepted. The policy also covers for defense costs, settlements, and damages. What are these? Now, there is an allegation. It may be a civil, it may be a criminal. I'm talking about allegation, not the final verdict. Okay. When there's an allegation that your service was deficient and which has led to a damage to a third party, which you would want to contest in the court of law because it's a legal demand which is arising. The defense cost is paid by the policy, which means that if you're hiring a legal counsel to defend your side, your views of your statements, your actions, these legal costs will be borne by the policy. So you can actually hire a good defense lawyer to defend yourself. The settlements which is happening, settlements and damages. Now, if it goes to the court of law, it could either you'll go in terms of legal proceedings. So the court awards a suppose the court says, yes, you are wrong. And your client has suffered a financial loss. So you need to compensate the client with whatever award is being mentioned by the justice. That damages is also paid by the policy. It may also happen that during the course of discussion, both the litigant and you, the defendant, understand that this legal case is going to go long. And when the legal case goes long, it's only the lawyers who benefit out of it because the more present representation, the more fees. So both of you decide like, look, let's not waste each other's time. Let's not waste each other's money. Let's come to a settlement. So you may go for an out-of-court settlement. Under the process of law, there is an out-of-court settlement possible. That is also covered by the policy. So the policy will cover your defense cost, any out-of-court settlement which is going to happen or can happen, including the legal costs involved in the out-of-court settlement, because you may need to have lawyers to draw the final settlement agreement, and the damages. If the court awards, and when I'm saying damages or the defense cost, initially the defense may happen in a lower court and later it goes to a senior court. Okay. The defense cost involved in each level is paid by the policy. So the defense costs at different level, and whatever is a court of final adjudication, whatever damages being awarded, that is paid by the policy. Any questions or should I proceed ahead? Now, what is covered? Professional liability arising from the failure to perform a profession that we have talked about. Loss of document. I had explained a bit about the documents. Okay. Now, what's covered in a loss of document is basically the cost of recreation of a document. Suppose I would say like you had a plan or of a plant. The design of the plant was made by a foreign company, which needs to be translated in either English or maybe a vernacular language to get it passed from the local authority. And the original plan has got lost or has got damaged. The cost of recreation of that particular document is what the policy can also pay. I mentioned about defamation earlier. Joint ventures. Sometimes it so happens that for a particular project, you join hands with another party for getting the contract. Now, whose interest can get covered? Suppose I would say like the other party is someone who is negotiating and the claim comes on that other party, but arising out of the joint venture because both of you are participating or providing the advice together, the loss also or the claim also comes on you. This joint venture clause in your policy can help you cover those exposure. If this joint venture clause is not there, then you'll be having an exposure that the policy may not respond to claims. So you need to look into that also. A simple policy will not be having a joint venture clause in it. Vicarious liability cover. What exposure do you think like a vicarious liability cover would provide? You are providing a service to someone, right? You may also want to take service from someone else also. Arising of the other party from whom you have taken a service. For instance, you have subcontracted to someone for a particular part of work, and there's a negligence on that particular part. You integrated it with your translation and you have provided it to the customer. And the customer is unhappy because of the total work they have received. And this is actually arising from someone whom you have contracted with. But the liability comes on you. It is not your mistake. You have outsourced to someone whose mistake, whose professional negligence is bringing a claim on you. The policy can also get extended to cover those exposure. And I have talked about defense cost. What is not covered? A simple policy, when you take a policy from the insurance company, they'll give you an out of the shelf policy. Okay, a simple standard policy. Those policies will be having these typical exclusions. There are more exclusions, I would say. I've just listed a few of the main ones. Dishonest, fraudulent, criminal, reckless, or malicious act or error or omission of the insured. What could be dishonest in your profession? Suppose you're doing this for a bank and you have got insider information of the account of a account holder, or maybe you're doing it for a credit card and you have a credit card company and you have details of a credit card. One of your employees actually has taken the information and then may use it for an ulterior purpose. That's a dishonest act of an employee of your organization. If such a claim comes in, a normal policy will not pay for the claim. A reckless, you knew that this is not right, but still you have done it and provided a service to it. If it is proven, and I'm talking about if it is proven that this was a reckless act, the policy will not provide a cover. So yes, if it goes to the court of law, or maybe the insurance company will say like, look, this is reckless, and they'll want to force you to prove yourself that this act was not reckless or this service was not reckless. If you're able to satisfy either the court or the insurance company, then the claim will be paid. If they have been able to prove that the act was reckless in terms of providing service, claim will be denied. Contractual liability and commercial risk. This is very interesting. Typically what happens is like when you have got a contract, the contract may mention an insurance clause wherein it specifies saying that, look, you need to take certain insurance policy. Now, contractual liability is something they are saying exclusion with, and you are buying an insurance because contractually you are being mandated to buy an insurance. Would that get excluded? No. when you read the wording will say any contractual liability, a contractual liability will be excluded. But if a liability arises in the absence, suppose in the absence of a contractual liability, then the policy will cover those exposure, which means that even if you didn't have a requirement of a contractual obligation of buying an insurance policy, in the absence of that particular clause, still you would have been exposed to a liability claim. This particular policy will respond to it. Now, it so happens, and to give you a little more clarity to it, suppose it is being told that, okay, you have to deliver in a particular service in 10 days. If you don't deliver in 10 days, there's a penalty clause over there saying that per day your liability will be about, maybe, for instance, 10,000 rupees. Now, 10,000 rupees is a loss that you're entering in, that you have, I would say, like, you're experiencing a loss. It's a financial loss which you're getting. That is a commercial risk, is something on a contractual liability that the insurance company is not going to pay for it, because you have already accepted that liability without any contest. A voluntarism, normally all policy will be excluding it. Personal injury. What is a personal injury? A personal injury is like amounting to, similar to a defamation. In my previous slide I talked about defamation. Okay, a normal policy will actually exclude defamation, but a good wording should actually remove this exclusion and give you a coverage for the personal injury, including defamation. In your line of business, suppose I would say, like, there is a interpretation services. Okay, at the venue when the interpretation is going on, someone objects to the interpretation which was being made, and there's an argument which happens over there, and there could be an abuse also because of that argument. Arising of those abuse, the policy will not cover typically, but this is something that can be removed or excluded from the exclusion of the policy, and the coverage can be provided. I have seen unparliamentary languages being used when discussion does not augur well with the recipients, so they become a little agitated and they may use whatever word they want to use. Intellectual property rights, I have given you the example of intellectual property rights because I know that sometimes these the plant or the technology comes for translation, and I
Vibhav,
personally, yes,
Vibhav,
yes,
we need not get into all these points in extreme detail because the members will ask the questions about what is unclear to them because they're slightly short on time, slightly.
okay, fine, I'll go first. Fine. Related parties, any party related to you, in a sense, like I would say, just like in accounts you have seen the related parties, here also the related parties is not covered. Suppose you have your own subsidiary or there is a related party, claim from them will not be entertained. Pollution, you do not have an exposure over there. Product and workmanship, I don't think so it will be your exposure over here, until unless you're doing it, you are integrated part of a production company, and where product and workmanship is coming in or helping in, I would say, like, in terms of someone a foreigner who's come over here to advise in terms of how a workmanship can happen, and there's an interpreter in between. That is the time it can happen. The extensions which I talk about, infringement of IPR, including patents and trade secrets, can get covered. Fraud and dishonesty can get covered. Continuous cover means that, see, every policy says that during the currency of the policy, whatever claim happens, you have to report during that time. But in a liability policy, the claims will get reported in future. There is a time gap, and if there is a you have missed out in terms of informing the insurance company, the cover can get extended because of the continuous cover. I'll come to the cyber exposure part. Now, today, every one of you are working from computers or phones or maybe electronic devices which is connected with the net. Now, here is where in the current day circumstances, a huge cyber exposure is there, and today everybody is getting exposed to, big and small, depending upon the nature of work. Typically, I would say, like, in a cyber exposure, the risk has to be assessed. To what extent you are exposed to cyber? So someone would want to check your systems, your processes to do it. The risk profile matching has to be done now based upon the risk that you have. Now it depends upon who are all your customers. Is it banking? Is it manufacturing? Depending upon that risk profiling, and accordingly the insurance policy wording has to be drafted. Based upon that, again, what in value of insurance are you going to buy? What sum insured are you going to buy? What is adequate? What is inadequate? Needs to be looked into it. The policy wording has to be drafted, and one of the most important thing is when a cyber attack happens. Now, if your customer is a financial institution, then you would need to advise them and you need to monitor. There's a responsibility if you're doing it for your client or maybe a European Union client, you would need to monitor it. And if you're doing it for a European Union client, there could be a possibility of GDPR regulation being imposed upon you, the liability getting imposed on you. So that is something which is important. We need to look into who are your customers and in which territory your customers are. So basically, when you look into it, one, definitely it's a computer system. Anything happening from a use of a computer system in terms of someone able to ingress in your system and is able to take out the data, that exposure is there. Electronic computer program, codes, someone actually has put a malicious code in the system. That code is actually able to transmit a data which is confidential and leads to your customers suffering a loss. That will be the electronic data and media. Now, it could be you have done a translation on your system. Unfortunately, when you transferred it to the customer, this particular data had I would say, one of the virus, which has passed on to the customer computer. This is an exposure. Yeah, computer virus, there are various forms, malware and all are there. Electronic communication. It can happen because of electronic communication. It can actually, when you look into it, there are many times today you have ransomware attacks wherein the communication is actually blocked. That can actually expose your clients to various losses. So that is something that can be covered. Electronic transmission exposure is there. Electronic securities. Sometimes today when you look into it, the money and securities, today when you do a transfer of money, you're not writing a check, you're doing electronic transfer. That is something can happen. Initiated transfer, voice initiated transfer. Someone has hacked into your system and has initiated a transfer because voice has been activated, that is something can be also get covered by the policy. So these are the various exposure which is there and can get covered by the policy. What we do is basically we do a pre-risk evaluation, we do a structuring of the risk. Then we go to the various insurance company to find out the right price. We also see who are the emergency response assistants in the built-in in the policy. The reason being is today when a hacking happens, you would want to just a minute. Yeah, today when a system gets hacked, there has to be an emergency response system because someone would need to come across in terms of a forensic expert to identify, isolate, and then rectify it. You cannot wait for 10 days to negotiate and then bring it, because in 10 days the entire system will go crashing down. And post-loss forensic, what loss has happened. So all these exposures needs to be covered by a cyber insurance policy. This is basically what we do in terms of assisting in the proposed anyone who's an intermediary, because your understanding of your exposure has to be translated in the proposal form and provided to an insurance company. So you need someone in between who's helping you out in terms of providing this information. This is typically what I would say on a broad base what an insurance policy is of. One is a data liability, wherein when you look into loss of personal information, loss of corporate information, outsourcing and all. And these are the that is covered, which means someone is filing a case against you, and this is the first party losses which is happening, including when you look into monitoring, notification when you are providing a services to a financial institution, extortion, network interruption. Your system is down, you cannot provide services, so you're suffering a financial loss. Administrative obligation, today we are looking into very soon the new IT Act should come in, and I believe that there'll be various I would say like obligation on the service provider when the data is lost. Okay, this is basically our process. Others process may differ, but I'm just trying to show you what is our process. Confirmation from the insured on the final indemnity limit. So what limit are you going to buy, or what sum insured? We do a approach insurance company with whatever suggested wording is there. This is a non-standard wording, unlike your fire policy, motor policy and all. This is a non-standard wording. So between insurance companies, the wording will differ. Approval of the basically request for quotation from the insured. We float it and then evaluate based upon the quotes which is coming in, and then we place the policy. Group
Great.
mediclaim.
Just to interrupt, Vibhavji, we just have running short of a bit of our time. So if we could complete it in next 3 to 4 minutes, I hope we can do it. Yeah, I would like to have, because I have a lot of questions. I'm sure a lot of people are wanting to ask a lot of questions, and it will be sad if we cannot entertain those questions.
No issue.
Thank you. Thank you.
No issue. See, group mediclaim policy is something like recently because of the corona, everybody has there has been a lot of hospitalization expenses have been there, and a mediclaim policy covers that. Okay, what do? You may want to buy an insurance policy for your own staff. Uh, Typically, when you go to a PSO, they would want to have minimum 100 lives to make a group, but private companies may look into a smaller size also. Today, people are looking to smaller size as well. So there are certain benefit, for instance, like pre-existing disease can be covered, maternity can be covered. Individual mediclaim policy, these are not covered. Okay, you need to have a waiting period. Those are waived off over here. Postnatal expenses can be covered. Congenital diseases and can get covered. Okay, depends upon it. And there are various other covers like newborn baby, because typically a baby is not in a policy, but in a family. When you take a group policy, this particular can be there. Covers for, there are various other covers in terms of corporate buffer and all. Now, recently PPE kit for COVID-19 patient is also covered, and it has certain limitations. So this is something which is recently been put in. Also, there are specific corona policies also, which means that someone actually has contracted corona. It's a benefit policy. A particular amount of money which was agreed in terms of policy while taking the policy, that amount is paid. So it could be 50,000, it could be a lakh rupees, it goes up to 3 lakhs of rupees. But when you take a policy, the policy activation happens only after 15 days. Because if someone is mildly infected, may get discovered in 15 days. So those people are not covered. But after 15 days, once the policy gets incepted, after 15 days, the policy is available, and it depends upon what period of time you would want to take. Maybe less than 1 year, or maybe 1 year also you can take it. So such policies are today available. Why do you want to take it? For the interest of your staff. The other insurances are basically office equipment and assets insurances and keyman. Office assets is like you may be having a server, you'll be having printers, you'll be having laptops, computers. It could be various machines also, which is there, air conditioning, all those chairs and all. If it is owned by you, that can be insured. So all those things can get insured. And a key man is basically whosoever is the important person in terms of for whom the business is actually running, who's able to get business, and the person is defined as a key man. If anything happens, I would say like that person is no more, and definitely the business is going to get affected. Earlier there were benefit policies over there. I would say like endowment policies and all. Nowadays only term life is allowed, nothing other than term life is allowed. So, and if the person is no longer there, this benefit goes to the company, because the company will be suffering a financial loss. So any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumar, for educating educating us about the amount of risks we face every day while doing business. And as Sudhinji just mentioned, we have a list of questions that
Yes.
we'd like to ask you. So, first of all, what would be the ideal insurance cover for a language service provider with an annual sales of around 1 crore and 5 crore? And what would be the premium for each?
Okay. See, the liability is intangible. Unlike a motor car, which is a tangible product, if there's a damage, this amount of loss will happen because you know the value of the car, just like you know the value of a laptop. Liability is something which is intangible. Now, the services that you're providing, you need to know as to like arising of the negligence, what is your customer going to suffer a loss and what are they going to claim. It also depends upon who your customer is. Suppose for taking the name, you're doing a translation services for a company like Pfizer. And in the product description that you the pamphlet which is there with the product, you're translating that from another foreign language to an Indian language, and the instruction has gone wrong. Think about it, what the liability would be, because it's going to get sold in mass number. People will read that instruction and will be consuming the medicine. If the instruction is wrong, a large number of people will get affected. So depending upon what it is, second is there a limitation of liability in your contract? I would always suggest that you go with a lawyer in terms of limiting the liability of your contract. Typically, it should be try to do it within the fees that you're getting it. The big companies will not accept it. Companies with like Pfizer, Bayer will not accept it. They'll put a liability saying that, okay, $1 million, $5 million, 1 crore, 5 crore, whatever. It depends upon that. Pharma companies do that. Financial institutions may do that. Okay, so these are where typically they are the industries who will give you a higher value in terms of contract, but the liability exposure can also be equally high. So if it is a small company, your firm is small, but your customers are not that company with it having a higher reputation, because the loss of reputation will bring in liability. You may start with a 1 crore. 1 crore will not be too big. It is going to protect your balance sheet, because remember, this is a balance sheet protection. If any liability claim comes in, the money is getting spent from you, not from your bank account. And something, if you're looking to big ones, your customers are big, depends upon the geography also, because if you're signing a contract which mandates that the jurisdiction of any dispute is in US, then you have to think about the cost that you're going to pay the US lawyer, not the Indian lawyer. And the compensation will happen as per that. So again, depending upon the types of contract that you are entering into it, who your customer is, you would need to look into the liability. And the cost part of it, a 1 crore policy typically would come at around 6,000 to 6 plus minus 20% or about 60%. They also look into it, whether insurance company will look into it, whether you would want a policy, the jurisdiction of the policy to be US, Canada, excluding US, Canada, India. You have to be also, based upon that, the premium will get decided. And if you're looking into a policy of somewhere around 5 crores, the premium should range between about 1.5 lakhs to 1.75 lakhs. It's an annual premium.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. Also, how many cases of insurance claims happen per 100 percentage in 100 in India?
See, to my knowledge, for the translation industry, I have not heard. But as I mentioned to you earlier, I don't have a client also in translation industry, so I do not know. But for other industries, definitely there are number of claims, huge claims.
Okay. And how are risks, total premium amount, etc., calculated for both types of insurance? So the two insurances that we discussed in the beginning, liability and cyber exposure.
The professional indemnity policy will actually look. The insurance company will look into it. Who your clients are, who are your top 5 clients, and what is the revenue from those clients. Second is what is your total turnover for the anticipated 1 year and the past 3 years. They would also look into it, what type of industry these customers are from, your policy territory, jurisdiction and territory, whether it's India, worldwide excluding US, Canada, and worldwide including US, Canada. These will be the ones. And for cyber, basically, they would look into it. Who are your clients again, and whether what do you actually do for the customer in terms of, like, suppose you're doing something for a payment gateway and you have provided your services to payment gateway, which is getting integrated over there, and your worm from your system is going there. It's a high exposure because someone will be able to hack into a payment gateway. So it depends upon who your customer is, what services do you provide, the limit of liability that the sum insured which you're taking, the geographical limitation that you are wanting to put in, and sometimes some of the insurance company may want to have offline interaction with your IT head in terms of understanding what firewalls you have, what softwares, antivirus you are using, all those things. Yes, that's it for that. These are the information required by the insurance company for the two.
Great. Couple of more questions. I have a lot of questions. I don't know if you can, we have already exceeded our session time. And thank you, Vibhavji. To be honest, I've been taking this professional indemnity insurance for, I think, I don't know how many years. But I got so much, so much knowledge today. And to be honest, I know for sure today that there were so many exclusions that I was not even aware about. There were so many possibilities of extending the, inclusions into the indemnity insurance, which I was not aware. Nobody told me. So one thing that really is, from our talks that has come to me is that typically when we are looking for insurance, we go to, the famous insurance companies and we approach their offices and they give us some insurance. And we don't even know what they were signing on. Like you rightly said, those are very heavily worded 20-page contracts, and we just cannot make any sense of it. So what you're suggesting is that we should actually go through experts like you before we engage these large insurance companies, which may have off-the-shelf insurance policies for end users like us. Which may not be really in our favor. That's what you're suggesting.
So what I would suggest is like, see, the thing is like, this is a service which I would want to render. It's a pro bono from my end. Okay. You or any one of your members can approach Citlob and Citlob can approach me. I'll advise you independently, whomsoever you want to go with the insurance company. I'll advise you in terms of what information can be provided, or what coverage you should be having it, and how to negotiate it. I'll help you in that.
So very nice of you, because to be honest, all our members are so thoroughly, I'm sure, so I'm actually talking for myself first, and I'm assuming what applies to me would apply to a lot of members here. So first of all, most of us don't really take these heavy insurances, and if we do, we're not really aware about what is included and what is not included, and what is the possibility of maybe by paying a few thousand rupees we could probably protect ourselves much better. That is the whole idea. If we buy something and we are not protected, it's waste. So thank you very much for your offer. I'm sure all the members would be ever so happy to really connect with you, and I'm sure. Now this is, I think we'll just take one last question. And to be honest, I have at least 15 odd questions, and I would request Asawari to make note of this. I don't know how, or I would request the members to give these questions to Asawari. We will take it up. And we will connect you.
Yes, we can actually send the questions to Vibhav and ask him to probably answer them as best as he can.
Wonderful. So just before we, so this is a question that I always want, and I'm sure, so because there are a lot of freelance professionals also here. Of course, there are organized companies also. But in the interest of everyone, do you think freelancers need or such liability, indemnity liability clause, insurance, or they can do away with it? What is your opinion, just generally?
So suppose I'm an aggrieved party. I'll just give an example. Suppose I'm an aggrieved party. For me, and I have paid a fee to someone who has provided me a service. For me, it does not matter whether that person is whether that entity is an individual or a freelancer or a company. Okay, I would want a compensation. So I would go against it. And that's the reason I would say, like, whether it's individual freelancer or whether it's company or corporate partnership.
So it is just like doctors, so they are liable for their services So we are going to be treated exactly like that. That's what you're saying.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Very nice. Okay. So great. Thank you very much, Vibhavji. We have already overshot 5 minutes over the session time. And on behalf of Sitlov and on behalf of all the members, and I first of all would like to apologize to all the members who have raised these questions, and because of paucity of time, I'm not able to take it neither. And Devki also, I'm sure, has 3-4 more questions, which to be honest, we are not able to take it. So. So thank you very much, Vibhavji, and I'll ask Devki to share a thank you note from her side to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sudhinji. So, as you rightly mentioned, we have a lot of questions from many of our members, and me myself, I have some too. So we would send them to you separately soon, and we'll seek your support on the same. And on behalf of all our members and the Sitlop team, I would like to offer you our heartfelt thanks for spending time with us with all your detailed information about the products. And it is really an eye-opener for most of us, and I'm sure we'll make the right use of this information. So with this note, I'd like to thank you, and I'd also like to thank all our members for their support and for attending the session today. With this, I will take your leave. All of us, we'll see each other soon in the next webinar of Sitlop. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vibhav. See you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, all the members.
And anybody who wants to reach, please get through Sitlop, and Sitlop will come to me anytime.
Thank you very much, Vibhavji. Thank you all. Thank you all participants.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.